Welcome to the Bedford Area Chamber of Commerce Chamber Vibes podcast. Today, we have with us Amy Gallagher. She's a licensed CPA partner with Davidson Doyle Hilton, and we're excited to have her on. She's been a partner for over 20 years with the firm, and they've been in business for over 20 years. So they really help small business and individuals with their tax returns, and they also do audits. Amy is a UVA graduate with the McIntire School of Commerce, and she's been in public accounting her entire career. So thank you, Amy, for coming on today. I know we will have lots of questions to go through, but such a timely, really a wonderful time to have you on because people are starting to gather all their materials and paperwork for taxes and seem, I'm sure, as most are overwhelmed because this year was such a big change. So today we are going to just dive right in. We have got Amy Gallagher, licensed CPA partner with Davidson Doyle Hilton. And we are excited to have her on. We believe this is very timely information right now as people gather together all of their tax information. And as we come out of 2020, which was a massive year of change and pivoting and, with the PPP and lots of other things going on with the COVID-19, we are excited to have Amy on to answer some pertinent questions that I know our listeners will have on their minds. And so without further ado, welcome, Amy.
Oh, thank you, Wendy. You are right. 2020 was not a usual year when it comes to taxes by any means. First, we had the extensions, and then we had the CARES Act. So yes, there are lots of new changes out there. What I thought I'd do is maybe address some of the business issues first, and then address the individual questions.
That sounds great.
So the first question I'd like to address would be, what's the impact of the PPP loans that hopefully most of the small businesses in our area received? And from a tax standpoint, there's been a lot of going back and forth between Congress and the IRS. And on December 27th, the Congress passed a requirement that the PPP expenses are tax deductible and the loan is non-taxable. So essentially, we're getting a double dip. You receive the cash and you get to deduct the expenses. So there was a lot of controversy about whether those expenses would be deducted on our 2020 tax returns, and thankfully they will be for the small businesses. One thing I do want to point out about that, though, is Virginia has not conformed to the IRS regulations yet, to the federal regs. So there's a lot of controversy in Virginia right now about whether those same expenses being paid with those PPP funds can be deducted on your Virginia return. I know that the IRS doesn't open up for any filings until February 12th at this point. So hopefully between now and the end of February, that question will be answered in the Virginia legislature. But something to just keep your eye on and ask your tax preparer about if you have a small business.
Wow, yeah, as we know, the changes are there and continually happening, and so we're glad to have you on because these are the pertinent questions that our business owners are going to want to know. So it's nice to find out, hey, we might not know until closer to February 12th.
Right. And so, and the other thing that has sort of come to light with all of the continuous changes, and we know the SBA took forever to finalize the PPP forgiveness loans, is there's an employee retention credit that's available to small businesses. And I want to make sure that the small businesses in our area know about it. It is a credit for if your gross receipts declined in any quarter from 19 to 20, 50% or more for that whole entire quarter, and you had to shut down for any purpose, but you continued to pay your employees, you can get a 50% credit on the wages that were paid to those employees. So it's an amendment that's going to have to be made to some of your 941s that have been filed. But it's one of those things that if somebody doesn't tell you about it, you may not know it's out there. But it's called the Employee Retention Credit. And essentially, if you paid someone up to $10,000, you can get a credit on your 941 for up to $5,000 if you meet all of the requirements. So I think that's a big find for some of those small businesses that stayed in business during, particularly the second quarter when a lot of small businesses started to shut down, stayed in business, got the PPP loan, kept their employees employed. Well, you can also get this employee retention credit. So I think, you'll need to do some homework on that, whether you meet the requirements. But that would be another uplift to this CARES Act that has just come out.
That is great. So with more folks working from home, I know there'll be questions pertaining to home offices and that such a thing. So for home office expenses, are they deductible? And what?
Well, yeah,
is deductible?
That's a good question. I know a lot of people working remotely. It depends on what kind of how you're compensated by your company. If you are a W-2 employee, then there used to be what they called unreimbursed employee expenses, which you could itemize as an itemized deduction. That disappeared back in 2018. So if you receive a W-2, and you're not getting reimbursed by your employer for, say, additional internet or a new screen, two new screens you bought, you're not going to be able to deduct that because there's no unreimbursed employee deduction anymore. Now, if you're a 1099 employee and are filing what we call a Schedule C or you have an LLC, then yes, there's a way to deduct those line items because basically you're self-employed and you're paying for them yourself out of your employment income. But good question. That the unreimbursed employee expenses disappeared back in 2018, and there's been no change under the CARES Act related to this.
I wonder, if that would change and be something that can go
and
back.
Maybe in 2021 you do wonder. I mean, you do wonder down the road what, with more folks working from home, what that's going to look like. Right now the way it stands, the IRS says, well, if those are business expenses, your company should reimburse you.
Right.
Whereas, we used to sometimes pay for things ourselves and we could claim them on our tax return. Now the IRS's policy is if it's a business expense, let your company reimburse you for it.
Absolutely. So and that's something to know ahead of time for now too. So what can we expect?
Yeah.
So speaking of that going forward for 2021, a loaded question.
Well, we didn't expect this in 2020.
Right.
I wish I could tell you what to expect. We didn't expect tax returns to ever get extended, and not in my 30 years, to July 15th. So that was quite an interesting twist. I don't know what we can expect. I think some of us are expecting tax rates to go up. Obviously, with the PPP loans, the way they have to be funded at some level. So we're expecting tax rates to maybe change. But we don't have any idea what that'll look like. I did read today that the IRS is going to start auditing more small businesses. They're going to do a 50% increase in auditing small businesses. Now, whether that comes to fruition or not, I don't know, based on how backed up the IRS is at this point. But that was something that was indicated in some of the information I get on a daily basis. So, just small businesses might want to make sure that they're neat and tidy, particularly when it comes to the PPP. I know the SBA is forgiving those loans, and the IRS is letting you deduct those expenses. If you get audited, there may be more questions.
Sure. And the key for all that, document, right?
That's right. I mean, if it's documented, then you're good.
Yeah, right.
Hopefully.
Yes.
But it's hard to say. It really is hard to say what's going to change. In the coming year with everything that we've got going on. I do know that a lot of the CARES Act on the 27th of December extended a lot of the employer credits and some of the filings they can do to the end of March. So that's helping some small businesses get their ducks in a row and get their PPP loans forgiven. There is the new PPP 2 that's available.
2.0,
And I know we've been working. Yeah, and 501c6s are now eligible for that, as you know, Wendy.
We're so excited about that.
I know. And so hopefully that'll give another spark to some of the small businesses that need it to continue to be in business. The PPP2, we've been helping a lot of clients, calculate the formula for that and working with their banks to make sure that they apply for that if they meet the requirements. But 2021, I never would have said 2020 looked like it did. So
right.
Who's to say?
You guys had a huge curve. I mean, that was tremendous as we all, pivoted and did what we needed to do in business. But, I think about all the new tax laws and the impacts. What you guys have to do is incredible. So my hat's off to you. I'm glad I don't do your job, but I'm glad that you do because you do it well.
Well, we're glad to work with you.
we appreciate you guys so much. And thank you so much for giving us all of this great information today. I know that everybody that was listening will be so appreciative and hopefully they'll give you a call if they need your services because you guys do a fantastic job. We can attest to that and look forward to wonderful things to come and just appreciate your service.